Hey everyone, it's Zoe. Welcome back. It's live Q&A time again. I can't believe this is the second last one for the year because it is December already, which is crazy. I can't believe it has gone this fast. So as per usual, if you're watching the replay, just skip forward a few minutes while we wait for a few people to get on. Tonight we're going to talk about surviving silly season, just a few quick tips, and I've got heaps of questions, so it's a bit of a mixed bag. Lots of people have asked lots of awesome questions, so we've got a bit to chat about and get through. So I've got a few people on already. Welcome Candice, Sarah, Vicky, Talia, Julie, everybody is there. Awesome, nice to see you. Just hold on for a couple of minutes, guys. We'll start in a minute. I'm just trying to bring up my all my questions so that I make sure that I don't miss anything. And as per usual, if any of you that are on now, if you have a question that you'd like me to talk about, just pop it in the comment section and I'll get to it. Okay. Alright, so as I mentioned just a second ago, we've got live Q&A, sort of a theme for tonight, which is surviving silly season. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely in silly season. It's a bit ridiculous, and I'm just going to straighten myself up here. And also tonight, I've got questions about bypasses and sleeves. So sleeves converting to bypass. So Sarah, that's your question. I'm going to answer that tonight. And I've got a question from Karen about being a bit out of control and what might work. And also that one similar question from Fiona as well. And Jen asked a question about vegetarian eating too. So we're going to talk about all of those. So Jen, you're here. That's fabulous. Great work. Hi Beck, how are you? And Jan, we've got heaps of people. So nice to see you all. So I just mentioned at the start, it is only 2 left. There are only 2 left till the end of the year, which is absolutely crazy. So if you've got any questions, get them in now. I will take a week off over Christmas, but not too long, and I'll still have some posts going up and things in the group, but I'll just need to check the calendar and kind of figure out the live Q&A situation over the break and work out when the Mondays kind of fall. Also, as per usual, if anybody has suggestions for other times or dates that might, days of the week that might suit you better, you can just pop them in the group if you like. I don't mind. We can move it around. I found that Mondays at this time seem to be the best. We've tried a few different ones throughout this year, so it is nice just to kind of keep it at the same time every week. But if there's anything that, like if anyone you can't make it, just let me know and we can get started. Maybe try a few different days again and see if it works better. So we've got quite a few people here, which is awesome. Maybe hit like if silly season has already started for you. It has definitely started for me. We've had lots and lots of things on. Actually this weekend though, I went up to Mum's place for a little bit of an escape and just played with the horses and the chooks and the dogs and all of the rest of it, so that was really nice. So if you have any questions about silly season, pop them down in the comments and just let me know. I think there's kind of like 5 general things to remember, and it is really important not to, I think the first one is really don't beat yourself up, because it is just a time of year where stuff doesn't always go to plan. There's so much on, you might not always be able to make the best choice, and that's absolutely okay. Really just, you know, spend a lot of time with your family, spend a lot of time recharging and relaxing if it's possible, and don't beat yourself up if you eat a bit more of the crappy foods than you would normally, or if you would eat a little, sort of graze a little bit more. Just keep an eye on it. So the ways that you can do that are, first of all, I always talk about it, but check with your stomach first before you eat. So the challenge this week is to wait 3 hours between eating. I'd love to know, pop it in the comments if you've tried that today, if it's made a difference, if you've noticed anything new, if there's anything else that's popped up even just after the first day. Check in with your stomach, okay, over silly season. Do you actually need it? Do you feel hungry? Do you need that snack? Do you need to graze on those chocolate-coated almonds? Do you need that extra drink? Just check and see first. And sometimes just having that awareness helps us to really kind of dial in a little bit and to actually feel the power to say no to something, because you've actually checked with yourself and said, you know, I can have it if I want it, but do I actually really feel like it? And oftentimes the answer is no, in which case if you've asked yourself, then you feel a bit less deprived, really, because you've checked in. So first thing, don't beat yourself up. Second thing, check with your stomach before you actually eat something. The third thing, just remember to focus on quality over quantity. So obviously quantity isn't, you can't do it after your sleeve, all right? And you won't be able to do Christmas lunches or dinners anywhere near the size of what you've been able to do before. So instead, choose the best, the most tasty thing that you can. So if you're at maybe a friend's barbecue, or you're at like a nibbly function, maybe there's canapes floating around, choose wisely. Don't feel like you have to try everything. Choose the things that you really, really want to taste, okay? And then eat them, but eat them while you're absolutely focused on it and paying attention, and you really, really get to enjoy it then, okay? So that is the best. Choose the thing that you really love the most, eat it and enjoy it, all right? It is that time of year. There's going to be yummy food, like maybe you don't eat seafood as often, maybe there's something else that you only get at Christmas time. Choose that and eat it and love it. The next one, keep drinking, especially because it's summer and it's really, really hot. Just keep drinking, because we've spoken about it lots of times before, that when you're dehydrated you can sometimes mistake thirst for hunger. So I think it's really, really important just to keep drinking throughout the day, and see if that changes your appetite and what you feel like eating when you're at those functions, or what you feel like eating when you're at home over Christmas break, okay? And the last one is actually get out and enjoy the fact that you don't have to be at work. So maybe it's going out for a walk, maybe it's going down to the beach, maybe it's going out to the shops, maybe it's doing something else, but go out and do stuff that you don't normally do, or you can't normally do because you don't have the time. I know some of us will be working, but for the rest of us, make the most of it. Because oftentimes it's like when you're on holidays and you go overseas and all of a sudden you're walking more during the day. Even if you do eat some of that food that you wouldn't normally eat because it's around, I find that a lot of the time people come back from holidays having lost weight anyway, because they've been moving more during the day. So see if you track your steps, see if you can get your steps up more than what you would normally have them up over the day, over the week of Christmas. I'm having a bit of trouble with my sticking here, but that's all right, we'll get there. All right, so they're my 5 tips for silly season. So the first one was don't beat yourself up. The second one, check with your stomach before you actually eat something. The third one, remember quality over quantity and really enjoy what you choose to eat. The fourth is make sure that you keep drinking during the day. And the fifth one is actually get out and enjoy yourself. So I don't know, does anybody else have any other tips or tricks? Anything else that you've tried before, if you've gone through this season before, maybe you've tried this year so far? I'd love to know, and just pop them in the comments, so that we can get a whole bunch of tips and tricks for everybody, so that we can share them and everybody feels like they can manage silly season like a pro. So I've had heaps of people jump on in the last couple of minutes while I was talking about that. So Peter's here, Lucy's here, Jamie's here, Vanessa, hi, Sarah, and Maria, welcome everybody. Lovely to see you. If I keep grabbing my phone, I'm just sticking it back up. So it's a bit easy. It's just kind of slipping down one way, and next time I need to get some better blue tack, I think. So I wanted to move on to questions. If anybody has questions, pop them in and let me know. And while we're doing that, while I'm waiting for some questions to come through, I'm going to tackle a few of the questions that came through on the group over the last couple of days. So Jade's here as well, and Ross is here. Nice to see you all. So the first one, I think Sarah's here. This was Sarah Mewburn. I know I've got a few Sarahs. And Sarah said that she'd noticed that a few people had sleeves converted to bypass, and most of the reasoning seemed to be reflux related. So what sort of things do you need to look out for in these cases? So Sarah, it'll be really obvious to you if you are struggling with reflux bad enough to warrant a revision to a bypass from your sleeve. Most people that have reflux of that level will feel reflux all of the time, during the day, during the night, regardless of whether they've eaten or not. And it's not well controlled with the medication. So either they're taking Nexium or Somac. They're usually the two most common anti-reflux medications. And what we find is that that's not touching the sides. It's not doing a good enough job, and they're probably taking things like Gaviscon as well on top of those daily slow release medications. So really, if that's you and you're struggling with reflux, then I would go back in and talk to your doctor about it, because it's one of those things that often we don't realize that we can go back and see them more frequently than our scheduled appointments. And if you are struggling with reflux and it's something that just won't settle and you can't manage it with your medication, then it's really, really important to go back into your team. So it could be food related. If it's like you're getting reflux half an hour after you've eaten, then it could be that you're eating too fast, or you're eating too much, or your mouthfuls are too big. But if it's sort of all the time, low level, medium level, high level reflux, it never seems to settle down. Even sometimes the only time it will settle down is after you've eaten something, which sounds weird, but it's kind of pushing the acid down. And so if that sounds like you, please go back in and see your doctor. So Jade's just asked a question about reflux medications. Is it okay to take it as needed? Yep. There's no problem, Jade, and the surgeons that I work for really don't mind about reflux medications, taking reflux medications. So they will just say, take it as you need, take it, if you need a bit more. You don't want to be obviously taking buckets of them every day, but you can go up to quite a high dose without causing too many problems, which is good. Diane's here, welcome. And no problem, Sarah, I'm glad that's helpful. I will come back, Jen and Beck, to your awesome tips in a second on Christmas and silly season. But the one I wanted to talk about next was sort of related to each other. So Karen and Fiona had similar questions, and Jade, I think you commented on Fiona's as well, so it might be for you too. Really, they are asking, feeling a bit out of control with eating and wondering where to start. Do they go back to basics? Do they go back onto OptiFast? Karen said, does she try light and easy? She said the OptiFast is not as easy as everybody thinks. Fiona's asking for good ketosis kickstarters. And Fiona's was a little bit more detailed, and she said that she's 18 months out and noticed some regain, and she never reached her goal. So Fiona, if you're here, can you post and tell me what your goal was? And how far were you away from your goal? I think it might have been about 13 kilos or so. And was that goal a goal that your surgeon gave you or a goal that you set for yourself? Because with these types of questions where people say they never reach their goal, are always then, if you were in my room with me, we would talk about what your goal is, and whether or not that goal is actually a realistic goal for you. So we have spoken about this before, and I will post a link to calculate like a little spreadsheet that I put together, which would help you to calculate how much weight you would expect to lose after surgery. And sometimes we set goals for ourselves that are harder to reach than what is realistic. So realistically, we expect people to lose 60 to 70% of their excess body weight. So where you are before the surgery, before the OptiFast, and where you would be if you were a BMI of 25, and so 60 to 70% of that difference. So often that's a lot more weight, like a higher weight than what we would hope ourselves. And so that's the first thing. I always just check, what are those expectations? The second thing is, it is normal to regain a little bit of weight. A few kilos is absolutely normal. So who was it? Fiona has gained 4 kilos back. I wouldn't be too concerned about that at this point. Okay, but what we would do is look at what's going on around the habits around eating, and this goes to Karen feeling out of control and Jade as well. It's really about kind of, I don't like saying let's just get back into ketosis. Okay, let's go back onto OptiFast, because there's a reason why you've potentially been eating more than you need to. So we actually need to go back and start at the beginning again and kind of say, well, look, what's going on? What are those habits that are contributing to that? And most of us know it. So then it's about brainstorming and kind of coming up with ways to kind of troubleshoot those things. For a lot of us, it might be going to see a psychologist to work on your relationship with food. And last fortnight when we did the live Q&A, we started a psychologist list in the group, and Jen had a question about psychologists in the Upper Hunter and Tamworth region. So please jump onto the group in the files section. If you have a good psychologist, can you please jump in there in the files section, go to the psychologist recommendations. You guys can edit that document. So just go edit, it's the top, I think it's the top right hand side. Edit that document and put in any psychologist that you love, because it is way too difficult for me to know everybody all around Australia and over the world. So if there's anybody that you've seen that you like, please add them in there. And then if you don't think that there's a need to go and see somebody about your relationship with food, especially if it's been like Fiona, 18 months since your surgery, go back to the very beginning, and not to the OptiFast, but to the beginning when you've got back onto solids. Go back to basics. Check that those habits that you have around your food are you are kind of ticking them off every day, and check that you're eating good quality food, and simple as like, is half your plate vegetables and half your plate protein. So I'm going to also post a link to a post that I wrote about how to eat after your sleeve and the types of things you should be eating after your sleeve. And really, if you can go back to that and you can get your exercise happening and you're drinking enough during the day, and just go back to basics and kind of do a reset that way, you don't need to go into ketosis. You don't need to starve yourself. You don't need to go back onto those horrible OptiFast shakes unless you like them, in which case that's a different story. But really just go back to the beginning and start with all those basic things. And usually all I would ask if you came in to see me is that the weight regain stopped, so that you were staying stable for a little while, and then we can work on it coming back down again if we need to. If that realistic weight, if your goal was realistic in the first place. So Jade, I'm glad you just posted and said you really think you need to go back to basics. I will post a link for how much weight you can expect to lose. and also the basics, okay? And I'll post it in the comment section on the video here, so that anybody that thinks that maybe they want to go back and review what habits you should be kind of thinking about every day and what kind of foods you should be aiming to eat every day, then that'll be there for you, and you can just click through and have a look. So I hope that helps. Okay, so Sarah, this sort of ties in. Sarah's just said, does anyone have any tips on avoiding binge eating before the pre-op diet? I've heard it's called funeral eating. I haven't heard that term before, but I've heard it as kind of like the last supper, when people will have something big and kind of farewell their food and their favorite foods. That's really normal. I would love to hear if anybody has tips. Please pop them in the comment section, because I think it's a great question, Sarah. What I've found, generally speaking, in clinic is that people don't tend to or they tend to find the OptiFast easier than what they thought, because of a number of reasons. Not because it tastes great, but because you know why. So the reason why is that you need to shrink your liver. It needs, the smaller the liver, the safer the surgery, and often surgeons will close you back up if your liver is too big and it's too dangerous to get to the stomach to perform the surgery. So to do that, they need to move the liver out of the way. So if it's really fatty, it's really fragile, and when it's really fragile, it can rupture during surgery, which is why if the liver is inflamed, if it's really fatty, a surgeon might close you up. Then you have to go away and do the whole process again, which is even less fun than doing it the first time. The second reason why people tend to find that OptiFast is a bit easier is that there is a set time limit. So you know, I only need to do OptiFast, I only need to do this for 2 weeks, for 4 weeks, for 6 weeks, whatever it is. It's not like this horrible dietitian Zoe has told you that you have to go away and get on the OptiFast to lose weight for the next 12 months, okay, or indefinitely. So I tend to find that people find it easier than you would if you were doing it just normally for weight loss, okay? So I hope that helps, Sarah, but I'd love anybody else to get in and give us a few tips if you can. Okay, so let me go back. Jen, because you're here, I wanted to talk about your question about vegetarianism. I wrote a post on veggie and eating veggie after your sleeve, and I also tagged Nina, and I can't remember who else was vegetarian. There were a couple of people in the group for her tips. There's more information coming on vegetarian eating, but I wanted to address it a little bit here. It can be done after a sleep. You just need to be a little bit more mindful of your protein sources and where it comes from. So I've posted a link to the vegetarian eating post, and Nina and others, if you've got more tips to help Jen out, then please can you post them on that post. I tagged Nina. Anybody else, Jen's posted a question on the page just today, so if you go back into the group, you'll see Jen's question there. And I like as well, you know, your question, is your vegetarian sort of change to vegetarian diet contributing to your weight loss stall? It could be. It could be that maybe you're eating a few more calories now because you're not as full, because you haven't got the balance right of the protein and the veggies. Or it could be that you're choosing different foods and your body's just adjusting. It could also just be that it's absolutely normal for you to have weight loss that kind of goes in stages. So you'll stay the same for a bit and then you'll lose a couple of kilos, and then you'll stay the same and then you'll lose. It doesn't always come off like half a kilo or kilo a week. Bang, 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 bang. So Jen, you might just be at the point in your kind of journey around the surgery. I think off the top of my head it's been about a year, maybe a little bit more, and that might just be that, you know, you're starting to plateau, and so you're getting those stalls. It might just be part of the process, but definitely checking that you are getting enough protein every day. And that's an instance where I would recommend somebody tracks what they eat for a couple of days, just to assess and just to see, especially because it's a new way of eating for you. Okay, so Beck, I always love Beck's comment. You've said don't worry about avoiding the farewell tour. So this is in relation to Sarah's question just before. If you want to do it and start letting go of the stress around food. You'll then go on the pre-op diet and away you go on your sleeve journey. I found once I gave myself permission to do it, I do it if I wanted, the urge went away. And you won't miss anything later on. So Beck, I think that's absolutely wise advice, 100%. And that comes back to us in general, being kind to ourselves. And back to my first sort of point around Christmas and silly season is, you know, if you want it and you actually feel like it, then that's okay to eat some food. We tend to have these big taboos around food and restricting ourselves, I guess, and what's okay and what's not okay, and what's good and what's bad. And look, I interpreted your question, Sarah, as during the OptiFast phase wanting to eat those foods, but if it's before the OptiFast phase, go for it. You know, that it's not going to make any big difference long term, and you do go on the OptiFast, which does correct. I mean, obviously we don't want to be gaining, you know, 10, 20 kilos in the time before you start the OptiFast, because that might change the length of time you need to do the OptiFast. But if it's, you know, a couple of kilos that you gain before you start the OptiFast, is not going to be the end of the world. Okay, so Sim's here as well, welcome. And Jade, 100%. So Jade's just said that even after her sleeve, restricting herself makes the urge 100 times worse. And I think it's really important, again, with all of those those of us who are struggling with control of eating or binge eating, or feeling like you want to eat something and you can't, and you're feeling deprived. It is really about getting to that point. And it's what I'm always harping on about, is being kind to ourselves. And actually, no food is bad food. It's just food. So we just need to kind of keep working at it, keep chipping away, so that we can get to the point where we feel comfortable with food. We feel comfortable leaving food. We feel comfortable eating food if we feel like it. It's just being a bit more mindful around what we do. Okay, Vanessa, welcome. Finally made it to a live chat. Awesome. So Vanessa, pop in any questions if you've got them. We've had a bit of a chat about silly season and what we can do, and in fact I'm just going to go back up well to the beginning, where Jen said, so I gave you a few tips. So those 5 tips were, first of all, don't beat yourself up. Second of all, check in with your stomach before you eat. Are you actually hungry? Do you really feel like it? Do you really need it? And third, choose quality over quantity. So again, that ties back in with that enjoyment and getting satisfaction out of our food. If we really feel like something and then we eat it mindfully and we really enjoy it, you're going to feel more satisfied than if you eat it and feel guilty, or you eat it fast because you're feeling guilty, or you don't eat it at all and then you just feel like you're miserable because you couldn't have what you really felt like. So third tip, remember quality over quantity. The fourth one, keep drinking throughout the day. Make sure that you're hydrated, especially here in Australian summer where it's boiling hot. We've already had some, 35, 38 degree days. Make sure you aren't eating out of thirst rather than hunger. Make sure you're hydrated. And the last one, actually get out and enjoy yourself. So get out and do stuff. If you've got time off work, make the most of it, because then you'll find probably that you don't end up eating as much as you would otherwise, or you're moving more throughout the day than you would normally, so you end up not gaining any weight anyway, even if you do eat a bit more dessert or chocolate or whatever it is that you feel like. So thank you, Jen, for that that tip. So you had said, I try to keep Christmas food to the week of Chrissy. Last year I managed just having on Christmas Day, and you didn't feel like you missed out on much. So food isn't as satisfying, but you're finally starting to see food as fuel. So still some pleasure, but maybe not as much as you had before the sleeve. And I like that. I think everybody can benefit from trying to keep Christmas food to Christmas Day, or maybe Christmas and Boxing Day, a couple of days, rather than than letting it drag out for the whole month or two over December and January. And Beck has said that she's gone 100% to family style serving, so share platters, so everyone can look after themselves, and then you can pick and choose the best morsels and no one cares what your plate looks like. Much easier and much less stressful, and I agree with that. I think that's really, really good. And most of the time people won't pay any attention to how much you eat either, so then you avoid any of those questions with Great Uncle Bob about why you're not eating much, which can be a bit of a pain as well. And I think I've got one more tip down the bottom here. And Vanessa has said that your first Christmas was 6 months post-sleeve, and you did a lot of cooking for everyone else and had a mouthful of most of the food for you, so you didn't feel like you were missing out. It's only one day after all, and tomorrow is another day. So I really like all of those opinions and tips and advice on Christmas, because we do sometimes tend to build it up to be all about food, but it's really about family and about friends and spending time with people and having a bit of a break and a relax and a recharge. So hopefully we all have a fabulous time. I'll post the links that I've talked about today. We are almost out of time. Does anybody else have questions? Just pop them in quickly so I can answer them. The other things I just wanted to talk about was, how's everybody going with waiting 3 hours between eating? Has there been anything that you have discovered? Because I had a reply saying, let me find it really, really quickly, saying that it sort of came in and something that you hadn't really sort of thought about much before, but it made a lot of sense. If you're hungry sooner than 3 hours, so if you've eaten a meal and then an hour or an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours later, there's probably 3 reasons why you're feeling hungry. One is maybe it wasn't the best choice what you ate before. So maybe, you ate too fast, so you didn't eat very much, you felt uncomfortable, and so you stopped early. Or maybe you chose something that didn't have enough protein or didn't have enough fiber, so it didn't fill you up. So maybe what you ate last time wasn't filling enough, or maybe you're not actually hungry, okay? And maybe you're thirsty, or maybe you're bored, or maybe there's some other reason for why you're eating. So again, it's just a little bit of a check and a tool for you to use to see if you're eating mindfully, see if you're giving yourself what you actually need, or see if maybe you're eating when you're not hungry and so you're eating a bit more than you need to be. Vanessa said, I usually get peckish mid-arvo and you have lunch at 1 and then dinner at 6. And Vanessa, absolutely. So Karen had posted in response to that challenge, she'd said, do I need to eat every 3 hours even if I'm not hungry? And no, you don't, not at all. So it is important. We're just trying to get the balance right. So the 3-hour rule is really to stop grazing. It doesn't mean that if you're not hungry, you have to eat every 3 hours. So it doesn't mean you have to have snacks in between your meals. If you're not hungry at all, then I recommend you get your 3 meals in a day and you drink as much as you can in between. And that should be fine as long as you're taking all your supplements. And those 3 meals are good quality and they're balanced, okay? If you tend to get hungry in between meals, and like Vanessa, you have lunch at 1 and dinner's at 6, if you know that if you don't have something to eat, then by the time it gets to 6 o'clock and dinner, you are absolutely starving, that's when you're going to make a mistake. You're either going to eat too fast because you're starving, you're going to make a poor choice, maybe your mouthfuls are going to be too big, you're going to make yourself feel uncomfortable, or you maybe eat too much. So have a small snack in between. It's about getting to know yourself and your body and what works for you and what doesn't, without just eating for the sake of eating or eating because it's time. Okay, so if you start to feel a bit hungry at say 4 o'clock and you know that you've still got 2 hours until dinner, maybe you just have a handful of something. So maybe it's a half a snack, maybe it's a couple of mouthfuls of a bit of yogurt, or maybe it's like, because I had a look at protein balls today, maybe it's having a mini protein ball or half a protein ball, just to get you through so you're not starving but you are hungry for dinner. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And Jen, eating too often, working from home, procrastinating, so get to the kitchen often to walk away from the job. Absolutely, you've solved your own problem, Jen. Try going out into the garden. Maybe you have to water something. Maybe you have to, play in the garden. Maybe you've got to weed something. I've just been up at Mum's at Murrurundi, so we went past your shop, which was fabulous. And there's always something to do. So really trying to maybe start a list of stuff. Maybe go into the garden is a great idea. Just take yourself away from the kitchen, okay? And Jade, absolutely, Jade said that leaving the time between allows you to get enough fluids in. 100%. Often it's a bit of a vicious cycle when you are eating because you're not hungry or you're grazing, then you don't get enough fluids in, and then you feel like you need to eat more because you're mistaking thirst for hunger. So actually stopping and saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to drink a litre, maybe half a litre maybe, in between breakfast and lunch, you might not actually get hungry, okay, in between. You might find that you're fine without a mid-morning snack, or same thing in the afternoon. And then you're hydrated, you've got more energy, you're less tired, you can concentrate better. All of those negative signs of dehydration can also be mistaken for a sign of being hungry or needing energy from food. So it is important to kind of try and experiment a bit, see what works for you, because it's a little bit different for everyone, okay? So the other thing that I just wanted to mention, which I mentioned at the top, is this is the second last live Q&A for the year. So I'm going to go away and have a little bit of a look at the calendar and with the break and kind of figure out what we can do next, and when the live Q&As will be. So there will be one in a fortnight, and then after that we'll just maybe need to move it around a little bit to make sure that it works. And coming out next, everybody voted, and let me just double check, because I think it is cheese that is up in the top of the list. It is still cheese. So cheese is going to be the next shopping tips and the product recommendations, and so I will get into the cheese aisle. You guys are trying to make me really cold. But I think dairy is really, really tricky and really, really confusing, so I will do cheese next. So that one will come out, and I've got a few other blog posts in the works, so I'm hoping to publish a few things really regularly over the Christmas break, so you've got a bit of time to read and digest, and hopefully we get everything we need. So if there's anything else that you want me to write about, that you want me to talk about, that you want, maybe you want something themed for the next live Q&A, as always, just post them in the comments below here, or as a private message if you don't want anybody to know it came from you. If there's anything else, just post it on the wall in the community page, and I will do my best to get back to you. Okay, so we have run. Colin said we wouldn't have anything to talk about. It's been 40 minutes, and Beck, it has been lots and lots of things, so I feel like everybody's jumped on and there's been heaps of questions, which is great. So please go back, digest, pop some comments in. If there are people that needed help, like Jen with the vegetarians, please jump in and give your tips, your advice, and hopefully we can get all of those questions really thoroughly answered for you all. Okay, so I will talk to you in 2 weeks' time, but I will see you in the group, and good luck waiting 3 hours between meals. Okay, all right, thanks guys, see you soon, bye.